for the Newman City Council and Redevelopment Agency of November 18, 2008. Please stand for the pledge and the invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Bow our heads. Please help myself and my fellow council members make the right decisions for the citizens of Newman. Amen. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Capers?
Present.
Councilmember Kelly? Councilmember Creekall?
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Martinez?
Present.
Mayor Fennessy?
Present. Declarations of conflicts of interest on this evening. Ceremonial matters. We have, go ahead, Chief. Recognition of Brett Short's promotion to sergeant.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of City Council. It's my pleasure tonight to make a couple of announcements from within the police department. First is the recently you met Officer Edgar Gonzalez, where we swore him in as a reserve police officer before you probably 6 weeks ago, I believe, somewhere around there. It's our pleasure tonight to introduce him as actually our newest full-time and regular police officer for the city of Newman, and we're happy to have him on board. And he's been training for the last 2 weeks or so with Officer Cooksey and doing very well. So a second welcome to Edgar Gonzalez to the Newman Police Department. For those that I failed to mention, for those that weren't with us last time we introduced him, Edgar is also a reserve in the Army and has served overseas in Iraq. So we appreciate that service as well, Edgar. Thank you. And also, we're very pleased to announce a promotion of Detective Brett Short to the position of sergeant within the police department. Brett's been with the City of Newman Police Department for about 7.5 years now, and worked patrol, and most recently served as our detective, and is a very dedicated and loyal employee to the City of Newman, and we expect great things from him to continue, and congratulations on his promotion to sergeant in the police department. Both of them would be happy to give a speech if you want.
I think.
Other than
It's up
that,
to you.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Come on, Brett. You've never been lost for words. You've never been lost for words.
Oh, I know. How much to say to that?
Congratulations. Well deserved.
I'm going to move over to the podium over there. First of all, I want to apologize for being a couple minutes late. Myself and the chief are on the WFRC Human Family Resource Center board, and we had a board meeting this evening. And we have a proclamation this evening for the Newman Women's League. Is somebody like to come up and accept this, or? I'm going to read this real quick. Whereas the Newman Women's League was established in 1968 to advance the interests of the citizens of Newman, and whereas the league has through collective donations over 1,200, is that 1,200 or 12,000? 12,000. Has assisted and promoted the Newman branch of the Stanislaus County Library. And whereas the Newman Women's League has donated approximately $10,000 towards the enhancement of the Newman-Crozani Unified School District and their athletic programs, and whereas the Newman Women's League has donated approximately $10,000 towards fall festival activities such as the Newman Pageant, Miss Newman Pageant, and other community-sponsored events and activities. And whereas the Newman Women's League has promoted advanced education by bestowing over $6,000 in scholarships to graduating seniors of Orriston High School. And whereas the Newman Women's League has partnered with the communities and businesses of Newman and Crozani through the years, and assisted in raising over $40,000 in donations towards the Towards for Tots program for the children of the less fortunate. And whereas the Newman Women's League has over the past 40 years donated approximately $12,000 to miscellaneous endeavors through various organizations and agencies such as the Salvation Army, Newman Historical Society, American Heart Association, American Cancer Society, San Luis Convalescent Hospital, and the United Way. And therefore, I, John Fanazia, Mayor, do hereby proclaim that the Newman Women's League has contributed to making Newman a better place. Through community involvement, do hereby proclaim Tuesday, November 18, 2008, as Women's League Day in the city of Newman.
Judy Silber was our very first president in 1968. And through their endeavors, and I think it was long about 1970 or 1971, with the help of Glennis Kidder, they established Newman Fall Festival. So, and then of course, a few years down the road, we've turned it over to them. But over the years, we've collected and donated and sponsored a lot of activities and a lot of children's activities here in Newman. And one of the things I would like to ask tonight is to remind everyone that this is Toys for Tots season. And because of the crunch, every family in Newman is feeling the crunch one way or another. But I think we're going to have a really hard year this time. So please remember that the trees will be up at County Bank, Rite Aid, and Bank of the West, and there'll be children's names on there. In the past, we've had maybe 275 to 200 to about maybe 300 kids. I'm not sure where we are this year. I'm still waiting for a couple of the schools to come in with lists. So please, if you're not going to donate, please pick a tag and go and purchase a gift for a child. Thank you.
Thanks, Patty.
Thank you, ladies, for all the hard work you do in the community. And as Patty said, it's Toys for Tot and Food Basket Time, and being one that's helped when I can over the years distribute the food and the toys. And it's sure good to see the kids all come to the window when Santa shows up with some food and gifts. And you'd be surprised, they actually, most of them, a lot of them go for the food before they go for the gifts. So it's very rewarding. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to thank Mr. Martina for offering his services as Santa Claus, and also so if any of you other people would like to, and Mike Holland has always done Santa Claus for us. We do have lots of room for
Yeah, but that's supposed to be a secret.
I hope the kids aren't watching, Patty.
Thank you.
Hopefully they're in bed and they're not watching this. Thank you, ladies. Items from the public, non-agenda items. Does anybody have anything they'd like to bring before the council that is not on the posted agenda? David.
Yes. Dave Reed, 1541 Kern Street. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. A couple of quick things. One of them is on behalf of the American Legion Post 240 and VFW Post 7635, Newman and Gustine. I'd like to thank Councilman Crinklaw and Councilman Caton for coming down to our Veterans Day program on last Tuesday. And I certainly appreciate anyone that came down there to see it. We had roughly 150 people probably there, so it was well worth it. And the other thing, put my other hat on, is for the Newman Chamber of Commerce. We're having our annual Christmas mixer at the theater on December 4th. And with it, we have the usual decorated trees that we have a silent auction for, and we have the food and the wine and such as that. And we're also having a wine and cheese tasting along with this. So everyone's welcome to come. It's $5 for chamber members, $7 for non-chamber members. And following that, on Saturday is the tree lighting ceremony that we'd like to see everybody come out for. It'll be entertainment. It starts 10 o'clock in the morning. We have fire truck rides, pony rides, and then we have all kind of booths there in the evening and run from 5 to 8. We have the high school band will be there, some dance people from Justine, Cornerstone, I think is going to be the one. And just everyone has a good time, so wish everyone would turn out for it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dave. Is there any other non-agenda items?
David Manick, 1523 Brookhaven Drive, and I've received a notification of illegal parking in my boat, and I was just wondering if the council could clarify this as to. I went to the police department, and I was told that it's no longer fishing season and we could not park our boats in. There seems to be some arbitrary enforcement of this rule. Evidently, there's an ordinance on the books that's not enforced during the summer and suddenly enforced, which costs us a lot of us boat owners a lot of money. And I wonder, I have a licensed boat. It's Coast Guard approved. I pay my taxes. I have tax. The entire rig is totally street legal and paid for, you know, as far as taxes and all that go. How come we can park them in our houses in the summertime and not when November hits? I'd just like to have that maybe clarified, because I can't get an answer from anybody. I went to try to see a number of people there at the police department to see what was going on and see if the fellow that wrote Mr. Davis that wrote the citation warning. And I gave him my number, and he never called me back. So there's a lot of boats here in town. And, you know, as you know, we're right adjacent to a lot of prime fishing and hunting. And as far as I know, this license in my pocket here doesn't end in November. And I like to use my boat for fishing, and I have to have it available. So could maybe the city clarify their stand on this and maybe get consistent? If we can't park them, fine. If we can park them, fine. But just let us know. Don't penalize us during the winter for owning boats.
Chief, would you like to tackle this question for us, please?
Can I sit down?
Yes.
Can I sit? Thank you.
We, first of all, we apologize for any miscommunication. I don't believe I ever had an opportunity to speak with you about this, but we are aware that this is an issue. It originated as a result of citizen complaints. There is a ordinance in the city of Newman, as in most communities that I'm familiar with, that recreational vehicles, including boats, can only be parked for 72 hours at your residence. And an additional 72 hours can be granted by the police chief for a variety of reasons, such as you're unloading or you're doing maintenance to the recreation vehicle, et cetera. My best research on this is that it was not consistently enforced previously, but as a result of complaints and trying to be consistent, we want to avoid what the gentleman is actually suggesting is occurring. We did go out and no one received a citation for this, but we did advise anyone that was in violation of the ordinance by way of written warning that the ordinance does exist and they are exposing themselves to potentially receiving a citation from that. We certainly are not going out aggressively enforcing this. We have a lot of other pressing matters, but potentially should citizen complaints occur from neighbors or from others, the safest practice and best practice for us is to follow the law, and then we don't get into these situations where it's okay on one street and on another street it's not. We're actually trying to be consistent, and the ordinance is there, and we'll be required to enforce it unless, of course, the council chooses to remove the ordinance from the city code. But absent that, in an effort to be consistent, we will need to enforce the ordinance.
Hope that answers your question, sir. If not, I'm sure if you want to have a one-on-one with the chief, I'm sure he can. Yeah.
Okay, I'll make an appointment to see it.
That'd be great. That'd be great.
Thanks,
Thank
Chief.
you, sir.
Chief, a suggestion, Chief?
Yes.
In your article that you occasionally put in the index, maybe you could clarify those points and put them in there so that they're in
Sure.
press and people have a chance to read them.
I don't know when my next one is scheduled. Maybe I can.
It might be real quick here.
I don't know how.
You just moved up on the list.
How timely that would be, but hopefully folks are watching at home, and we've had 2 or 3 inquiries at the department. I believe City Hall's had a few as well, and everyone's left satisfied and understands that we're just trying to be consistent and fair, and we'll work with people as best we can. But at the end of the day, we're going to have to follow the law unless the laws change. So,
Thank you, Chief.
thank you.
See, any other non-agenda items?
My name is Mike Legate, 1161 S Street. Good evening, council. I received a letter, a notice to abate public nuisance by removal of weeds, dirt, rubbish, and/or rank growth. And then it goes on to say, and I believe it's the same as the the vehicles.
The 72 hours.
That I own. Yeah, but they're also, I have a couple jet skis in the backyard and I'll call it a hobby, a car that I'm restoring, a couple cars. And they're talking about the backyard also. I really want to look at the
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
to be quite frank, it scares me. I kind of stopped all my working on cars about 6 years ago when I took on the plant here in Gustine at John B. Sanfilippo and Son. Been 6 days a week, give or take 10 hours a day there, and I want to be compliant. I'm a good neighbor. I'm a good citizen. When I got that in the mail, it kind of scared me.
I'm sure the chief will be happy to meet with you one-on-one and put you on the spot again, chief. But
Yeah, I also actually put in 3 calls to Mr. Davis himself and did not receive a return.
okay,
When all else fails, go right to the top.
there you go.
Yeah, and yeah,
And he's sitting right there.
Yep. I'm sure the chief could explain, our new ordinance and the wording and meet with you, maybe sidebar right now in the back there, and he can explain probably a lot better than I can.
sure, excellent. I just didn't want to, it says if I didn't show up here, then they're taking it and destroying it. So, thank you, Council.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Any other non-agenda items? Seeing none, consent calendar. Item A, waive all readings of ordinances and resolutions to set by title. B, approval of warrants, and C, approval of minutes of the October 28th, 2008 regular meeting.
I so move for approval of consent calendar.
I wasn't here, so I can't.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Public hearings, we have a few this evening. The first one is adopt resolution number 2008. Next number, a resolution declaring the existence of a public nuisance under ordinance number 95-4. And I believe the chief is sidebarring in the back. Maybe you, well, I'm sure he'll only be a minute. Do we have pictures on that,
We do.
Michael, or while the chief is,
Mayor, this is 437 Red Line Way. It's an unoccupied residence. As you can see, this has been an issue for us. We do get in touch with the mosquito abatement district anytime we have a pool involved, because you saw the standing water. Here you can see large weeds that are starting to top the fence. And these are tumbleweeds here, so these aren't good. Go ahead, Mike. Oh, that's it. So as you can see, this is an unoccupied place. Excuse me. The pool presents a public health and safety issue, and then the weeds and these tumbleweeds, when they dry out, fortunately, that could lead to a potential fire. So we're asking that the council go ahead and abate. All proper notices have been provided. On a good point, we have been seeing a lot more cooperation from banks and landowners these days. If you haven't noticed, the sales are kind of picking up in the area in terms of residential, and so a lot of banks now are trying to comply to keep the properties looking good because they have an opportunity to get them off the book. So unfortunately, this is one that didn't comply. So 437, we're asking you to go ahead and adopt the resolution and abate this property. Excuse me.
questions from the council?
Yes. How was this brought to our attention?
Typically, what will happen is the code enforcement officer does go around and look, but I'm going to look on the report for you real quick on the second page. Yeah, this one actually, if you look up on top, of report taken by Davis of the police department. So this was our code enforcement officer going out, keeping an eye and viewing all the neighborhoods, and noticed that this property was not being kept up.
Thank you.
So you can see on the first, he tried to contact on 10/7. Second time he tried to contact was 10/21/08, and third one was 11/10. So he tried 3 contacts with the property owner.
If there's no further questions of the council, I'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Would anybody like to comment on this abatement? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the council for some action.
I move to adopt resolution number 2008, next to number, a resolution declaring the existence of a public nuisance under ordinance number 95-4.
Second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. And item B, accept wastewater collection system master plan and wastewater treatment and disposal master plan.
Mayor, thank you. We have Miss Tiffany Knapp from Ecologic here tonight, and if you might recall, back in February of this year, 2008, Ms. Knapp provided an oral presentation on our wastewater collection system, and then following up with that, in June of this year, she followed up with our second master plan, which is wastewater treatment. One is the pipes that get it there, and two is the treatment for which everything is then converted into something that we can dispose of on our property. So she's here and just kind of give you a brief overview real quick and any of the questions that have gone through, and then we're asking you to accept both master plans tonight. And that would be a wastewater collection system master plan and a wastewater treatment master plan.
I gotta tell you, Tiffany, this was an exhilarating read.
I'm sure it was. And you may not even have all the appendices, so you know there's more that comes with it.
Great.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Before I get going, I think that some of you may be ending your terms, and so I just wanted to say thank you, that it's been really good working with you. I've really enjoyed the really thoughtful questions and input you've had over the last couple of years that I've been working on these projects.
Thank you. Likewise.
I'll just introduce myself again. You know who I am, but Tiffany Knapp. I'm one of the project engineers and project manager for the projects that Michael mentioned. And I was just going to give you a quick review, in case you haven't read it as thoroughly as some of the council members, of the two master plans, and then kind of our summary of them and the conclusions that we had from them. Basically, the collection system master plan, the first one, was the objectives of it were to identify and evaluate the existing system, to evaluate any capacity issues that may exist there, and any improvements that may be needed based on surcharging or issues in the existing system. And then to also identify any capital improvements that may be necessary for future growth. Basically, what we did is stuck it into a hydraulic model. That's a very simple way of saying the complex thing that we did, but a computer simulation that looked at all the pipes and what kind of capacities they had, and concluded that except for a couple minor surcharging issues, the existing collection system as it exists right now will be able to handle build out of the city limits. So just a couple very minor issues, but basically existing now and then full build out of the city limits, the collection system will be able to handle it. However, this is about all it can handle. So for future growth, there will need to be new trunk sewers, and when we're talking about the primary and secondary spheres of influence, looking at full build out of the general plan. There may be able in some areas for the existing collection system to be able to handle some future growth, but that would be on a future case by case scenario. The city received 3 sets of comments, and we responded to those comments. The second master plan was the wastewater treatment and disposal master plan, and some of the things that we did there are very similar in the way that we're looking at the existing wastewater treatment plant and evaluating the treatment and disposal capacity for right now. We're also identifying capital improvements needed for future. On this side, we have a lot of regulatory issues to deal with, so we're also we provide some guidance on regulatory issues and potential options for future growth, both based on growth and also on regulatory issues that exist out there. And one of the big things here is making sure that any future improvements that are needed, that there's a nexus between new users paying for what they actually need and existing users only paying for improvements that may be needed there, capacity limitations, that kind of thing. We also, as you know, we have issues with high salinity in the effluent. It's part of where we bring in the water supply project. We also have potential issues with unlined treatment ponds and potential groundwater degradation. There's a lot of unknowns out there, but there's also a potential to offset potable water demands based on how we dispose of effluent in the future. So unfortunately, there's a lot of unknowns. The groundwater assessment is something that'll take several years to complete. So the goal of this master plan was to bracket the extremes so that the city had a lot of flexibility in the future when there was some more conclusion on groundwater assessment and would be able to plan for everything depending on what answer was. Basically, our conclusions were that the existing system is a little bit overloaded to accommodate full build-out of the city limits. It's doing just fine right now, but in order to add that extra little bit for full build-out, there are some improvements needed. And that for future growth beyond city limits, there are potential unknown degradation issues. So there is the need, or where our recommendation is to look at future treatment being a very high level of treatment, so that you are planning for that. If you don't end up needing, if there's not any degradation issues, then at least you've planned for a higher level of treatment and can then plan fiscally and can then accommodate something less than that. There's also some potential benefits from planning for a higher level of treatment in that the wastewater can be, or the treated effluent can be reused beyond just the agricultural reuse that it's used for now, potentially back into the city in dual plumb piping on landscaping, irrigation, and that kind of thing, which then offsets the potable water side of things, which would reduce the project over there. So basically, we just recommend that there's a lot of flexibility planned for the future with that. And this master plan, the city also received 3 sets of comments that we responded to as well. So with that, I can answer any questions.
Questions for Tiffany?
Tiffany, I just have one comment. My first meeting as a councilman 4 years ago, I asked, what's the capacity of the sewer farm? Thank God I got the answer 4 years later before I leave as a councilman. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Agency of government.
Sorry it took so long.
But it got done, right, Mike?
It got done. It took a little while, but got done.
It was planned that way, so you know.
Now you can leave.
Yeah, no, you can't.
Got your answer. Your question got answered. That's for any questions? Any other questions for Tiffany from the council? Okay, I'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Any comments or questions from the public? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back for some direction from the council.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mike, you.
I would be glad to move for acceptance, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Mike, you happy?
I'm
you
happy.
very much.
Thank you for the answer.
And our final public hearing is an introduction and first reading of ordinance number 2008, next to number. An ordinance regarding maintenance, security, and rehabilitation of abandoned and vacant property, and authorize staff to prepare and publish a summary of said ordinance.
Mayor and council, basically, last meeting we had this on as an emergency item. This is a backup regular ordinance, so you'd have the first reading tonight, and then you can't adopt it until the next regular meeting that you have, and I believe that's December 9th. So I'd answer any questions you might have from last time, but sounds like we're getting some cooperation, not because of this, but just on the natural, so hopefully we won't have to spend a lot of money enforcing it.
Good. Questions? If not, I'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Would any public like to comment? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back. What do we need, Tom? Just
Motion to introduce tonight.
okay.
Also to publish a summary of said ordinance.
Yes.
Anyone?
I would move to introduce and first reading of ordinance number 2008, next to number.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Moving on to regular business. Item 8, continuance of appeal of Planning Commission decision denying variance number 2008-02, Joe Winters applicant.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. Before you is the continuance of the appeal of the Planning Commission's decision to deny variance 0802. This item was continued to provide the applicant some time to find a solution that both would follow the municipal code and provide an RV, cover for his RV. The applicant, Joe Winters, as of my last conversation with him, was still in discussion with the contractor, which is Carolina Carports. So we haven't, at least staff hasn't heard too much information about it. Sounds like the contractor hasn't been very willing to help Mr. Winters out, from what I understand. Happy to answer any questions.
Joe, you want to come up and give us a report on what's been happening?
Hello, Mr. Mayor and Councilman. Well, I finally got a hold of them a couple days after our last city council meeting, and I talked to them and I asked them about their job as a contractor, and you know, that they were supposed to tell me about the 12 feet and all that stuff. Well, he says that if you look in the back of your contract, there's a paragraph in here that says they are not liable for any kind of city codes. I don't know if you guys want to look at that. So they basically told me that, you know, they're not responsible for it. So I said, okay, well, this was 2 days after that. I mean, when I first got a hold of them. After that, I called the district, their headquarters in Carolina, and talked to someone there. And they told me, well, the person, I think it was Elizabeth, they were going to get back to me. Never got back. So I called again. No callbacks. The other companies in Fresno, the ones that put it up, I called them over and over. I've even called them again today, and I can't even get a call back from these guys now.
Tell me you want to buy another one.
They got your check
I
and
thought
that's it,
about that. I thought about that. I actually, Stephanie even said it. But, I mean, these guys, I'm like the plague to these guys right now. And I don't know what to do. I mean, I looked at it, and I said, the only way, if I can even get these guys to come out and do this now, is make the thing 16 feet wide, if it lowered, to get it in, to go down 12 feet. But, I mean, they're still talking, you know, to have it widened and lower it. I mean, to lower it, when I first talked to them, they wanted almost $1,300 because they have to disassemble it and put it back together. So I don't know how much it'd be to have it widened. I don't know if I can widen it. You know, I mean, the way the property line is, it would take up the slab I put up back there. But I've been trying with these people, and now it's, they don't even call me back. So, like I said, you know, I mean, I didn't mean to go over what I was supposed to, but trust me, it would have been a lot easier.
It's kind of unfortunate they won't even work with you.
As soon as I brought up the other thing, then he told me, he says, well, look on the back of your contract and read it, and it says they're not liable for any codes. So I said, all right, I'll look at it. And sure enough, it says it. And then I've been calling these guys and leaving messages. So all I can say is, just take leniency on me. And I mean, I know, I was at a city council meeting one time, they approved a 14-foot high roof for a guy that had construction. But I forgot where it was. But I mean, to looking at it, I mean, at least it's lower than the first story still, so it doesn't look like it's huge. Well, it is big, but I mean, I did the best I could.
Any other questions for Joe? Mike?
No, I've got one for Michael, though. Is it allowable for someone to come in the city and do work, whether it's permitted or not permitted, on a permit basis or not, and do something illegal?
Two things. One is it's not permittable for them to come in and put up a structure that requires a building permit, and they're a licensed contractor. That's against the code there. But ultimately, when it comes down to issues such as this, ultimately it is a property owner who's responsible to educate themselves on what the standards are. So it's a dual question there. They're responsible for getting permits and complying with the code, and there are ramifications. He can file a complaint with the Contractor State Licensing Board regarding this. But ultimately, it does come down to the property owner's responsibility to ensure that all local codes are met.
And this is a non-permit because it's a portable structure?
I don't believe this is I believe this is a permitted structure. Anything over 120 feet tends to be a permitted structure. So this is over 120 feet. And it really is. I mean, if you look at it, it's a permanent structure. He bolted down to the...
So is this one of those deals, Micah, where really the people that did work and put this up should have got a city business license, huh?
They should have got a city business license, and which is why they came in Friday at 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
They know they can come in Friday at 5 o'clock, and there's not going to be any building inspectors around. And why they're able to slap something up like that.
So then my interpretation of what you're telling me is that Mr. Winters does have caveat to come back against them and say, wait a minute, this is supposed to have a permit, you didn't do it.
He could file a complaint with the Contractors Licensing Board, yes.
Well, I did go down to City Hall and talk to Stephanie about it. And I told her what it was, and it's not, as far as it was concerned, it wasn't a permanent structure. Because I asked her about a permit.
What was described to me was a temporary type of carport structure. The materials were not described to me. The galvanized steel type of structure, it is bolted down. I had this discussion with you after we found out it was bolted down and did tell you that it would require a permit. I have a statement from a building official that says the same thing. When people come into the office and ask me, general vague questions, I can't read their minds, nor do I know exactly what will be built until I get plans in front of me. So I go by the best of the description and what's allowed in the code.
Stephanie, question, was Mr. Winters told that the restriction was 12 feet?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Further questions?
I have a concern, that you knew that it was 12 feet, and you went ahead and put it up to 14.
Well, yeah, I mean, like I explained last time, my intentions were 12 feet. And the way we measured it, and then when we were putting it up, backing it in, we had an issue with it. I mean, my whole intentions was go 12 feet. Sure, I didn't want to go through this, I mean, I didn't want to go against the city code, but they were already there, and I forget, it even says on the back there how much they charge to have them come back. But my full intentions was 12 feet.
Well, gentlemen, what do you want to do?
Personally, I would be willing to grant a further extension and give Mr. Winters the opportunity to file a complaint and see if he gets some action going that way.
I wouldn't be opposed to that. We have to realize that we're going to hold to 12 feet, so it's important that you do get some action based on whatever litigation you take.
Well, those structures, there's a few of those things around here, those same covers. And I know nobody else has had a permit for them. So there's a few of them around.
In the city limits?
Yeah.
I've not seen them, and as I drove around, because when I was coming down Driscoll, it caught my eye. I mean, just stood out.
Oh yeah.
And I would think, Joe, the only thing because you knew it was 12 feet, I think bottom line, I think what this council is saying, it's going to have to come down to 12, and I agree with the rest of the council. I mean, I'd be willing to give you more time to try to fight your battle, but ultimately, what I'm hearing and sensing from my fellow council members is you're going to be held to the 12 since
Okay.
that's what staff told you it was, limited.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah.
And you knew that.
I knew that. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not lying. I'm not going to
Yeah.
deny that. But my intentions was to go to 12 feet.
Yeah. And I have not seen, and if there are,
There's around, but they're not over 12 feet. I'm not saying that.
Yeah,
But they're out there. I know.
I haven't seen any
personally
other,
one
other
person that has
structures.
one,
Yeah.
and he's got his boat under it. So.
The only thing I see is potential for us as a council is once you open that door, it's a floodgate, and people start saying, well, you allowed this person to do it, you allowed that person to do it, and then we're stuck.
Well, like I said, it's been granted before.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been here when you guys have let it go.
Well, not since I've been on the council.
No, it was before. Yeah. So I mean, it's like I said, my intentions wasn't to go as high as it is. I mean, not at all.
Michael?
Mayor, if I may, may make a recommendation. If we could, sounds like 12 foot is the height. If we could move forward with the action and then grant 3 or 6 months to make sure it gets remedied, we won't take any enforcement action on that amount of time instead of having to continually bring this back to the council. To me, it's sounding like there's consensus up there of what the action's going to be, and then there's conversation that I'm hearing that enforcement could be delayed a little bit. If I'm hearing you correctly, then what I would recommend is you go ahead and move on the action and then direct staff to 3 months or 6 months, whatever you feel is appropriate, to allow Mr. Winters to make the appropriate changes before we go out and fully enforce this thing.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And it's just unfortunate these people won't even call you back, Joe. I feel bad for you for that, but
Well, 6 months would be even easier.
Michael, would it be appropriate or inappropriate for the city to just do a letter to this company and say that we don't appreciate them coming into town and doing work without getting a business license?
We could advise them of that, yes. Anytime they're coming in, these types of structures do require building permits, and they do require that they get a city business license. And we can fire off that letter to this company.
That might be helpful and
Yeah, it might
some
be.
action getting done.
Right. Although I would kind of refrain from going on to this individual circumstance.
Just general
because-
letter, yeah. That, you know,
Now, if I have to, now what, if we go, well, it's gonna have to go down 12 feet. Now, if we have to move it 16 feet wide, is there gonna be an issue with that?
There's going to be an issue if you're within 5 feet of the property line.
Yeah, I mean, I can go the other way on the,
Yeah.
yeah, that's, as long as I go the other
Yeah,
way.
but double check with the building department, because there are separation codes between accessory structures, which this is, and main structures. So
Yeah, I'm
just-
way apart. far
Yeah,
from
just
there,
double
yeah.
check with them, and I believe that's a 10-foot separation, and then 5 foot. So if you can comply with those code sections,
Yeah,
I'm
I
not-
have them all at home.
Right. You have a rather large lot, so I don't think lot
Yeah.
coverage is going to be an issue. So
The other side where the fence is, that's gonna stay. I mean, I can't do
Right.
anything else over there. I'm right at the limit there.
So
If I could, I'd love to get like 6 months if you could. It'd be easier on me.
Mike, what would
System
you
might come
think?
up
Would
with
you
money,
like to
too.
make a motion to that or effect or different timetable or?
Yeah, I'll make that exact motion, and I'll let you reword it.
yeah, it would be a motion to deny the request, the appeal by Mr. Winters, and then allow a 6-month enforcement period to reduce the height to 12 feet.
I make that motion.
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Okay.
Joe, good luck.
Good luck, Joe.
Item B, consider an amendment to the Consolidated Plan for fiscal years 07 through 12 and annual action plan for fiscal year 08 through 09 to include the expenditure of $9,744,482 in housing and urban development entitlement grant funds under the Neighborhood Stabilization Program.
Good evening again. As Mayor stated, before you is the proposed amendment to the Consolidated and Annual Action Plans for the Stanislaus County Cdbg Consortium. This amendment, in essence, is a requirement for the consortium to apply for the Neighborhood Stabilization Program funding. It's funded under the, I only know the acronym HERA, which is the recent bill to kind of assist with the whole foreclosure crisis. The amendment to our plans will allow us to submit this to HUD so that way we can get our allocation. We've already been, in essence, determined for the amount, the $9,744,000. Of that $9 million, City of Newman is eligible to receive $1,002,000. This is a really important tool in stabilizing the neighborhoods, as its namesake. With this funding, the city is prepared to utilize funds in areas that need it the most. At the time of the staff report, the areas that were generally the most in need were the Ranchwood subdivision off of Upper and the Oakwood subdivision that's Lady Slipper, Sweet Gum. Those were the two areas that seemed to have the highest density of foreclosed and vacant homes. As required by the NSP, we have to have at least a quarter of the funding utilized in the Cdbg income eligible area, which there are also foreclosures in that area. So the money would be utilized to its full extent to help stabilize our neighborhoods and, fight this crisis. I am happy to answer any questions. Staff recommends approval, obviously.
Never turn down money.
Yes.
Questions, comments?
Do it
Not-
before they change their mind.
Exactly. If not, some direction.
I move for approval of amendment to the Stanislaus County Consolidated Plan for the year 07-12 and Annual Action Plan 08-09 to include the expenditure of HUD entitlement grant funds under the NSP.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much, Stephanie.
Mayor, just a quick update on that. We also found out that we may be eligible for an additional $350,000 to $400,000 that we could parlay on top of that $1,002,000. So there may be an additional $350,000 that we're going to go after out there. So
Great, that's good. Item C, introduction and first reading of ordinance number 2008, next number, an ordinance amending Title 11.05 Water Service Regulations of the Newman City Code, and authorize city staff to prepare and publish a summary of said ordinance.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Tonight, what I have is to change the city code for the water service regulations. Currently, right now, it states specific dollar amounts for how much the water deposit can be, how much reconnections can be, and so forth. What I'm looking to do is just take that out of the city code and change it so it states that it's established by resolution. This would make it easier for us to change the city code. To change the deposit amounts or any other fees that we have linked to that ordinance. Currently, right now, we are considering changing the water deposit. We still have a really low water deposit. With the rate increase, it doesn't fully cover 1 month's billing. And that would help us in the collections department as well if we increase the water deposit. Does anybody have any questions?
Questions?
What amount you talking about increasing it to?
We're thinking about $150 a month. Currently, an average bill is about $65 to $70. That's for everything. It's stated as a water deposit, but it's for the garbage and the sewer and the
It's $50 right now, huh?
It's currently $50, and if we did do it, our intentions wouldn't to be retroactive. So if they have $50 deposit, we're not going to go get an extra $100.
Right. So,
The only time it would be collected is if their water got shut off or when they signed up for new service.
right, so for new customers, so to
New
speak.
customers and delinquent customers. And it is a deposit, so after 18-month period, they would get the money back if they were paying on their account.
Questions? Not some direction?
I move for approval.
I second that motion.
Just for the record to introduce.
Yes, introduce first,
I'm
first
sorry.
reading. Motion and a second on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item D, adopt resolution number 2008, next number, authorizing the city manager to execute a contract with the city of Christine for animal shelter services and authorize a budget adjustment for the purchase of an animal services pickup.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. We've been briefing you over the last several meetings regarding our animal control situation with Stanislaus County, and we are recommending a resolution to that tonight. Some background information, you're probably familiar with it. Currently, over the last several budget years, the city of Newman has adopted $30,000 annually for animal control contract with Stanislaus County to provide field service work, patrol the city, collection of animals, etc., as well as animal boarding. Sometime around early October, we were officially notified of what we expected was coming from Stanislaus County, that all existing contracts with the cities were being terminated, and as of January 1st of 2009, and that new contracts would have to be negotiated, and that they shared with us those projected new costs, which were substantially increased. And part of that was because the county was going to build a new animal shelter, and they wanted the cities to share in that cost. So staff immediately began doing some research based on the new cost of about $122,000 a year, so quite a substantial increase of just under $100,000. There's just no room in the existing budget, and based on our economic situation, that would have resulted in a dramatic hit to the police department. So we began exploring other options. We have contacted the city of Gustine, who actually has a shelter that is very adequate for our situation. In fact, it's new, and they are currently experiencing only about a 50% of its capacity at any one time. So very available to us, and obviously much closer for our residents than having to drive to Finch Road in Modesto, near the Modesto Airport. So it's an increased service for our residents not having to drive to Modesto. We believe that we can accomplish field services through existing staff, through our community service officer, based on the number of animals and the statistics we're gathering from Stanislaus County. Approximately 373 animals annually come into the Stanislaus County shelter through a variety of means that on one of your attachments you can see there. I think it's attachment A. everything from dead on arrival to confiscated strays, etc. Based on those numbers, we were satisfied that existing staff could handle that field service as well as being supplemented by police officers as time permitted. So there's no additional cost for field services, being that existing staff could do it. So then it was only about how much it would cost to shelter the animals with City of Gustine. We negotiated with them, and staff is satisfied with the arrangement outlined in the contract and staff report before you, that it would be $10 a day for boarding of the animal, and $15 if it was a quarantine situation, which is very rare, and $55 if the animal had to be euthanized, and that would be to the County of Merced. We do not have a contract with County of Merced because City of Gustine has an existing relationship with them, but in working with the County of Merced, they were very, very pleasant and to work with, very agreeable, and do not see any conflicts or potential issues with that. So again, this $10 and $15 and $55 is a recoverable cost from obviously the animal owner if we're able to do that. If it's a stray, then it would the taxpayers of Newman, of course, would have to handle that. But otherwise, if we're able to reunite the animal, which we think will be much more successful, having local control, and residents won't have to drive to Modesto, so hopefully it's more convenient, it's more reasonably priced, and that we'll be more successful in returning the animals to the owners and then recovering our costs for those services. And we plan to be very aggressive with that, putting animals that we take into custody on the website with photographs. The shelter's obviously very close proximity, so they can go view the animals. So we think that we're going to have much more success than Stanislaus County has with that. So what we would propose tonight is an 18-month contract beginning January 1st of 2009, and as normally it would end June 30th of 2009, but being that was only 6 months, go ahead and run it 18 months the first time. There are cost containment issues in the contract that we've considered, as well as a 30-day out clause if things are not working as we planned. So we believe we have adequate protections, and the city attorney has reviewed the contract and is satisfied with the content of it. As part of this process as well, we do not currently have a pickup for the community service officer who drives a Crown Victoria, so we won't be able to pick up animals with that. So what we'd be asking is, we will have some savings. That we have the original $30,000 budgeted for animal control. We've only spent at this point for the first quarter just over $3,000. We expect the second quarter, when it ends, that bill to be about the same. So it's much less than we had budgeted because of staffing issues with Stanislaus County. So with the surplus that is already budgeted in the existing budget for this year for the police department, we'd ask to use $12,000 of that money to buy the pickup so we could accommodate the animals and provide this field service. What else in regards to this? Revenue. Interesting that as part of our arrangement with Stanislaus County, we surrender all licensing revenue, enforcement revenue to Stanislaus County, which they generously informed us that is $21,600 last year. That's an actual amount, not an estimate. So by taking local control over animal control again, if you approve this contract and the following agenda item, which is some amendments to the ordinance, we would recover that $21,000, or we would expect to, or certainly close to that, and offset our animal control costs. So the bottom line of everything I've presented to you so far is, if we're successful in our revenue collection of enforcing the licensing of animals, as well as any fines that may be associated with them, and the cost of our existing employee, the cost of service with City of Gustine, we think that our animal control costs are going to be reduced to about $17,000 a year rather than the current $30,000 at an improved service to our residents. So staff would ask that you approve the contract, approve the transfer of the funds for the purchase of the vehicle, and move forward with this new relationship with the City of Gustine.
Chief, I want to commend you and thank you for moving on this so quickly. And, I mean, this is, Unless something came up, we would just be in our old rut with the county, and I think this is, we're actually gonna be a lot better services for the citizens there.
City manager and I had the same discussion.
Yeah.
It really turned out to be a
Yep.
good thing
Oh,
for
yeah.
us.
Very
That
good.
it causes you to really take a look at
Mm-hmm.
your service and what you're paying for, and we think we can get a better service at a reduced cost.
We probably should at least thank the county for bringing it to our attention. Or not.
I just have a couple of comments.
Yes, sir.
Chief, you indicate in the first quarter we've paid Stanislaus County over $3,000. How long have they not been providing the amount of contracted hours as far as patrolling our streets?
I don't know an exact period. I know that probably at least the majority of 2008, but I don't know for certain beyond that. We really focused on this crisis, so to speak, right now, and we did not go back farther to see whether we were overbilled or underbilled. Or
That was going to be my next question.
Part of the problem is, I'm sorry to interrupt,
I'm
but
sorry, go on.
there wasn't I believe Chief Uleberry instituted, before I arrived, a log for them to check in. But prior to that, we really didn't know if they were here or not. So we probably never really be able to go back and say if they were in the city or not. But they do come in and sign a log now. It's on the honor system when they come in and sign it. But if they're here more than that or less than that, we really wouldn't know.
So how much do we owe Stanislaus County up to the end of this contract?
All we will owe is for the second quarter of this fiscal year, so through December 31st. And based on their staffing and their patrol hours, we would expect it to be around the $3,000 range again for that second quarter. They've clearly told us they don't have the staffing to provide the existing contracted amount,
Okay.
which is excessive in comparison to our smaller neighbors in the county. We have double the field coverage that cities of our similar size. So.
With this pickup, would you be able to also be able to obtain the cage, the box, or whatever?
There will be some miscellaneous supplies.
Good.
We don't expect that there'll be too much. Being that we're small enough, we're not going to drive around. If we pick up an animal, we're going to drive straight to Gustine.
Yeah.
We won't need an air-conditioned, unit on the back where we drive around all day with the animals. If we collect an animal, we're gonna put it in the truck and in the carrier and drive straight to Gustine. Be there in a matter of minutes. Put the animal in a better environment, and then the officer will be back out on the field.
And my last comment would be, just under your analysis, one of the things that used to probably bother me more than anything else when I used to be a cop and is I would hope that our CSO would be burdened more with this job rather than have our police officers pick up dogs and throw them in their patrol cars. That to me was almost like the lowest form. Highly paid animal control officers wearing badges and guns and $500 uniforms, and so especially during the winter months.
The community service officer will be our primary. That'll be one of his primary responsibilities. But when he's not there, obviously we'll have to pick up the slack. But based on the number of calls and the number of strays, it's less than one a day. Strays were 271, so the deads can wait until the next day. That was a little not as sensitive, I should. But
we know what you meant, though. That's
we
all
would
right.
not respond to those immediately. That would wait for follow up the next day.
We have a chief with a heart.
I would just hope that it would be the very last thing that our patrol officers have to do is to handle animal control duties.
Unless it's something that requires an immediate response, then it can wait for the following day. And that's similar in my experience in other police departments. That generally, a police officer is only dispatched if there was some safety concern or issue related to it. But otherwise, it could hold until the next day.
Further questions?
Chief, one other question.
Yes.
Was any consideration given to just making a trailer or buying a trailer to transport these animals, putting a trailer hitch in the back of the car rather than having another vehicle to service and maintain tires and all that?
Yes, and I'm glad because I didn't cover it very well in the staff report. our plans are, if this is approved tonight, is the current community service officer vehicle is a 2002, so it already is experiencing some maintenance issues. It was a previous patrol car, and we put a lot of miles in use and hard driving on police vehicles. There are some side fringe benefits to this community service officer. This happening and receiving a pickup. I actually would probably next year have been asking you for a pickup anyway, because whether we did this or not, because we have to beg and no, I shouldn't say beg. We have to borrow from Public Works. We have a need for a pickup as well, hauling large evidence items in the field. We recover stolen property, bicycles. We have to throw them in the trunks of cars. The community service officer can have cones. He frequently has to block traffic or direct traffic during the day, carries additional equipment. In most cities, the community service officer, not that we have to always be like most cities, but it's very common for the CSO to drive a pickup based on the nature and scope of their work. So this sort of just fits perfectly into that as well. So we did not, to answer your question, we did not give that consideration because of all of these other added benefits of having the pickup. So it was just a perfect opportunity to go ahead and move that forward as well. So we wouldn't have to detract from what Public Works is doing, because they don't exactly have vehicles, laying around not in use. We were taking them from someone in that department when we needed it.
Further questions?
Just one. Once we approve this, would we know the hours of operation for the the citizens, so when they can pick up their animals and that sort of thing?
Yes, it'd be generally business type hours. We haven't necessarily pinned down with Gustine what that will be, but we will have full access, so we won't be reliant on them.
Oh, okay.
They're going to provide us keys, and their corporation yard actually has an electronic gate, and they're going to provide each patrol car will have a essentially it's a garage door opener, okay. So we can access anytime. If we had a situation where someone's work all day and they've made arrangements, can we meet you at 7 p.m. to pick up our animal? We'll certainly accommodate that as best we can. We can do that outside of, we don't need Gustine to be there to make that happen.
Very good.
So it would be very, very accommodating. That was very positive for us that the service is actually improved.
Thank you.
They wouldn't get that at the county shelter.
Sounds great. Any questions? Further questions? Not some direction then?
I would move to adopt resolution number 2008 next in number, authorizing the city manager to execute a contract with the city of Gustine for animal shelter services and authorize a budget adjustment for the purchase of an animal services pickup.
Second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Our next item pertains to that also. Introduction and first reading of ordinance number 2008 next in number. An ordinance amending Title IX Police Regulations of the Newman City Code modifying Section 9.02 Animal Control.
But in light of the contract you just approved, it now requires us that we make some modifications to our ordinances. They were modified previously to accommodate Stanislaus County and to specifically direct licensing, for example, to go to Stanislaus County. All enforcement rests with Stanislaus County. Ultimate responsibility rests with Stanislaus County, that their county animal services director would make all decisions in regards to animals in our city. So in light of our relationship ending with Stanislaus County Animal Services, we need to correct that and bring back local control on each of those ordinances as well. They are attached. Most of them were simply deleting the word county and changing to the word city. There were just a few other very minor that nothing really changed the philosophy, I guess, of the city. They're more just logistical type changes that would allow us to carry out the duties of animal control in the city of Newman. And again, this specifically addresses that revenue issue, that we would receive all revenue and Stanislaus County would not receive any.
And officially, you will be the Director of Animal Services.
Yes,
Wow.
yes.
That's
Yes.
a title. That's another good title.
Yes.
Questions?
Chief, is there a reason you raised from 3 to 4 the number of dogs to?
Yes, what that was is we talked about that as well. Originally, it was worded that it was 3 or more, so that would suggest that you can only have 2. And we just found that it is not overly uncommon for someone to have 3 little dogs or 3 dogs. So what we did is now we said 4 or more. So you can have 3 animals versus restricting to just 2. And I think it's just, I don't know if it's more common now or but it's consistent with what others are doing. 2 just seemed a bit restrictive. That's a dog and a cat, and that's the end. You couldn't have 2 dogs and 1 cat, type of thing. So.
Further questions? If not, some action.
I would move to introduce and first reading of ordinance number 2008, next number, an ordinance amending Title 9 Police Regulations of the Newman City Code, modifying Section 9.02 Animal Control.
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Item F, introduction and first reading of ordinance number 2008, next number. An ordinance amending Title 8 Health and Sanitation of the Newman City Code and adding Chapter 8.01.180, and authorize entry into waste containers, and authorize staff to prepare and publish a summary of said ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is introduction, first reading as well for a new ordinance in the city. This is to address complaints that the police department has been receiving from citizens in regards to individuals digging into garbage cans, waste containers. Most often it's in alleys, and creating a number of issues in regards to that, dealing with noise, dogs barking, hearing the banging of the tools or items that the person has with them, causing people to wake up during the night, these types of things, as well as trash left behind. Unfortunately, many times the trash is removed. The items that the person is interested in are taken, but they don't take the time to put everything back. That's not to say that everyone does that, but more often than not, that's what our residents are finding. As well as it's a hazard to, as much as we want people to shred their documents, and we've tried to educate as best we can, nonetheless, there are those that just still do not do that and throw items in the garbage. And unfortunately, many of our identity theft crimes originate in this manner, just from people rummaging through the garbage. Current law exists that if you put it in the garbage, you are essentially abandoning the item. So under abandonment rules, anyone is open to go through your garbage and take whatever they choose out of it. So it makes it problematic for law enforcement because it's not a law violation. We certainly could stop and talk to the individual, but we would really have no authority to ask them to stop that or to require them to identify themselves or these types of things. And again, it's not everyone that's doing this, but many of these individuals are individuals out 2, 3, 4 in the morning who are committing thefts on our residents from items that they happen upon in these alleys or in yards. We've even had reports of individuals going into backyards and stealing recyclables from within the property owner. So we would ask that this ordinance be adopted. It does grant the property owner to give permission to an individual specifically, so then that would preclude them from the ordinance. If you name an individual and say that it's okay that John Fanzia goes through my garbage,
Thank you.
then that's okay with us too. But it does allow people to grant special
I just wanted to
permission.
do that. Dumpster dive. Always wanted.
Yeah. So this hopefully would discourage people from continuing this practice, and it would allow law enforcement to take enforcement action if needed. It's not to say that we're going to go out and arrest every individual that's digging in the garbage or take them to jail, but it certainly does give us a legal ability to do so if we have to. And currently we don't have that. So be open to any questions that you may have on this.
It's funny you should mention that because I actually had to do that at work yesterday.
Dumpster dive?
I get a call from our head sales guy. He goes, "Have they dumped the garbage bin yet?" I go, "No, they haven't. Could you go out there and find some plans for me that I threw away by accident?" So I actually was dumpster diving yesterday at work. So used a ladder. I didn't fall in. I did a good job. Found the plans. Everybody was happy.
So you're a professional now.
I'm a professional dumpster diver. Yes, I'm going to get my
new
card,
calling, John.
union card, and everything.
Chief, are we experiencing any problems with the garbage bins downtown and as well? And would this include?
It would include, yes, it's not just residential containers, it would be the business containers as well, any waste container in the city. But I have not received any complaints from the business district or community. This is mostly residential area, predominantly. It's in the older section of town with the alleys that where the problem is coming in.
Further questions? If not, some direction.
I move for introduction and first reading of ordinance number 2008, next number, an ordinance amending Title 8 Health and Sanitation of the Newman City Code and adding Chapter 8.01.180 on the authorized entry into waste containers and authorize staff to prepare and publish a summary of said ordinance.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you very much. Item G, adopt resolution number 2008, next number, approving the Driscoll Avenue Sidewalk Infill Project and authorizing myself as mayor and Michael Holland as city clerk to record a notice of completion.
Thank you, Mayor. As part of our programming for our Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality Improvement Program, also known as CMAQ, we were able to secure $82,000 for a sidewalk infill project. And what the CMAQ project is really to reduce to improve air quality within our community. So if you can find a way to reduce the number of PM10s and dust that's going out into the atmosphere, you have good projects. So we were able to secure the monies, and the council did is approve installation of sidewalks on Kern and Driscoll. And basically, Kern turns into Driscoll, so that would extend from M Street to Balsam on the Kern Street side, and then again from Balsam to Eucalyptus. So from M to Eucalyptus, we just installed new sidewalks, and that project has been completed. All the time periods have elapsed. So with that, we're asking you to approve the project and allow us to file the notice of completion.
Questions? If not, some direction.
I move for approval.
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Item H, report of the City of Newman sanitary sewer line replacement project and award bid to Lawrence Bacco.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, this is a community development block grant program. As you may recall, in June of 2004, the city did join the Stanislaus County Consortium with Stanislaus County and other cities within the county. And we are allotted a specific amount of money every year, and it varies depending on what the federal government and the state pass down to us. As part of that, one of the projects that we went forward with was a sewer line replacement project. Now, this is in the older part of town, and what you have is old terracotta lines with clay lines, and sometimes those have collapsed up on top and it's kind of formed an open channel, and those need to be replaced. So because the neighborhood is classified by the census tract as a low income area, we were able to do these types of improvements. So we budgeted $250,000 for this project, and moving forward, we were very pleased to see that the low bid came in by Lawrence Bacco for $124,899.90. Gary Davis of GDR Engineered, who put together the bid documents, reviewed all the bids and found that the forms and bonds were in proper order. So with that, we are recommending that the bid for the sanitary sewer line replacement project be awarded to Lawrence Bacco for $124,899.90.
Good time to be doing projects, that's for sure.
Yes, it is.
Questions?
Mayor, a couple of years ago, we probably couldn't get anybody to bid on this
Oh,
project.
not in a small project like this. There's no way. You're absolutely right.
And now we got 8
Yep.
or more.
Yep. Questions, comments? If not, direction?
It was moved to approve an award bid for the City of Newman sanitary sewer line replacement project to Lawrence Backhoe Service in the amount of $124,000 and $124,899.
Second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Item I, authorize the city manager to execute a contract with NTD Architecture for Aquatic Center construction documents and administration.
Thank you, Mayor. Following our last meeting, we had direction from the city council to let's continue to move forward and initiate the final phase of our Aquatic Center project. The final phase is actually a multi-stage project, with the first being construction documents, and that's the engineering and drafting of the documents that would then be sent out for bid. The second part of that is the agency review and the bidding process. That's where we go through the final documents and make sure we like those. And the bidding process and negotiations, that's where we send the bids out to the exchanges. Contractors get copies of the bids, the packages. We do a walkthrough on the site, and then also the architectural firm will help us negotiate some of these things. Part of what you also have to do is you have to respond. They're going to do requests for information and other types of things, so there may be some additional work that needs to be done on there. And then lastly is construction administration. Again, that's a very big part of it, and they'll be out on site. If you're not careful during large projects like this, when contractors get behind, they bury you in paperwork, and they're called RFIs, requests for informations. And that's how they get out of being able to be on schedule. They submit 30 or 40 to you and say, okay, I need all this information, and you have to go out and provide them that information. If you don't provide it to them in a timely manner, they come back and argue that says, well, we gave you RFIs, you never responded to us, that's why we're off base. By having a large firm like NTD Architecture, which is multi-office, multi-state type firm, they can bring in as many people as they can to make sure that the administration of the project's going on. So part of what we did with the new public works director is we renegotiated our project price for them. Originally, the contract price was 9.6% of the project cost, but knowing the current economic climate and knowing what we paid for construction documents on the plaza, we were able to negotiate from 9.6% to 9% of the project cost. And thus we saved the city over $37,000. And that's $37,000 we get to put into the Aquatic Center now, as opposed to just putting into an administration and documents. So with that, I know the city attorney has reviewed the language for the contract. The public works director and I are actually working on some of the attachments and for the contract, and we're really making sure that they are clear what their role will be in the agency review and the bidding and the negotiations, so that way they can't come back and say, well, we didn't think we were doing that, and have a big fight on that. So the $403,000 is a large amount, and I was very nervous about it, but what we're talking about is a $403,000 that takes us through 2011. So it's a multi-year project that will be continuing to move forward, and we're locking our prices in today, so they can't come back and renegotiate that. That means they'll be on site in 2010, 2011 when we're building this, and their prices are locked in today. So this is not a price that we're going to pay over a one-year period. This will be paid over the next 3 budget cycles. With that, I can answer any questions that you may have.
Questions?
Michael, just this project is one that's dear to my heart, and I know we've talked about the timeline. Is there any way possible that we can improve the timeline? Is that feasible? I mean, doing this in stages, like we're doing the plaza. Is that possible?
It's not, and the reason it's not, we have a timeline for getting the construction documents done, and it really, you need to be out to bid at a certain period of time. We want to do late fall, early winter to set up and for the construction period, because once the rain comes in and the other things that come in. Also, you want to time it out also so that you're not completing your project in September of 2010. Completing the project in September of 2010 does us no good, because of the fact that it's going to sit around from September till April until it's time to use it again. So we kind of work backwards from where we wanted to open and worked it backwards from there. And in 2011, May 2011 is the appropriate time to open that up. I don't think it's even feasible to even think that we could probably open it up in May or June of 2010, and really that's what you would want to do at the worst case scenario. To debug it, we don't want to put any additional work or time on the contractors that they're trying to rush their product and they do a sloppy job. We want to make sure it's done professionally and it's done with plenty of time, so it's not crammed in there. So that's where we've come up with this time schedule.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions? If not, some direction?
I so move that a resolution approving work for the Aquatic Center project and authorizing the city manager to execute a contract for services.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Staff reports. Michael?
Thank you, Mayor. Just kind of a heads up for our next meeting. I am negotiating right now with the gentleman who did your presentation for the redevelopment agency plan and the amendment that is so necessary for us to allow us to secure additional funding. Just had some very preliminary talks with Rick Foss, superintendent of schools, and based upon what we know and the preliminary information we had is if we can renegotiate some pass-through agreements with him, we may be able to generate $1 million in additional bond revenues that could go to the Aquatic Center, and then that would be like the school district's contribution. So they may be able to contribute $1 million to this project and not really have $1 out of their pocket. And so if that was true, then we're going to be sitting around $5 million right now for the project.
That's
And
good.
that's kind of where I was going to go with the second piece of that is the Aquatic Center financing, and that's going to come back to you. We're looking for the first meeting in December, but possibly the first meeting in January for that, for tying up all those loose ends. And we really want to make sure it's dialed in so all the council fully understands what we're doing with that. So I'd like to right now just, you pass those animal control ordinances today and moved in a different direction. All this was made possible by Chief McGill. I mean, he really took the reins on this, and it's this progressive attitude and proactive attitude that we are, as your staff, are trying to incorporate in so that we can better solve our problems locally and not rely on additional agencies that are out there. And so, but again, Chief McGill gets all the credit for this. I mean, he did an excellent job on this, and we didn't have much time. I mean, really, we got notified in the beginning of October. I mean, they told us ahead of time, but they never gave us any numbers. You start looking at $120,000 a year. I mean, are we going to sacrifice a police officer? As your staff, that's not something that we were comfortable with. So we really brainstormed on that. But Chief McGill put all the numbers together, so he should be really commendable for the hard work that he did on that. So. Garner Reynolds is our new Public Works Director. He started on November 3rd. Unfortunately, he won't be at these next two meetings because he's finishing up his master's degree and he has classes on Tuesday. So his first meeting will be the first meeting in January. If you haven't had a chance to meet him yet, he's a really exceptional find for us, and we're very fortunate to have him. He's really cut the mold of what we're trying to accomplish here in the city, and we expect good things out of him for the next 10, 15 years. So, just a reminder that there is no meeting next week. That's 11/25. Our next meeting will be on December 9th, at which time this council will be seated, do roll call, and then you certify the elections. And then at that point, we have a change of guard, and the new members will be sworn in. With that, just wanted to let the members know that are still going to be here. We will have a vacancy, a 2-year term that needs to be completed. And that will be due to Councilman Caton moving to the center chair and becoming mayor. So the 2-year unfulfilled term. So we have 30 days.
Yeah, government code gives you 30 days to appoint someone, or else it automatically goes to a special election.
But in order to meet that 30 days, I need you, and we'll talk more about this on the 9th, we don't have a meeting scheduled within 30 days. So if we're going to appoint, I need you to start thinking about we need to at that day set a meeting date for that appointment to occur within there, because December 9th is our last meeting of the 08. Our first meeting of 09 is January 13th. So you don't have 30 days there. So we'll talk a little bit more, but maybe the 6th of January, 7th of January, that's the first Tuesday or Wednesday of January might be an appropriate time, and it falls within that 30-day period, if that's so the desire of the council. And we'll talk more about this on the 9th, and Tom will further advise you. I am pleased to report, I wasn't real sure about in 2004 when we joined the consortium. I mean, as your staff, we really wrestled with it because, we were giving up a lot and being competitive, and there was an opportunity to actually get more money for the city. But it's actually really, from staff's perspective, worked out really well. We've done a lot of projects. I mean, you've seen the project. You got sidewalk infill project on Yolo. You got sidewalk. You got sewer line replacements. You got new bathrooms at the Lions. You got new playground equipment that's going on over there. There's a lot of good projects. We got a sidewalk infill project again going on next to FDES Hall. That's the next one that's probably coming in bid in spring. So a lot of good projects on there. But not to be outdone is the computer programming classes that we are now offering at the Adult Education Center. Within the first 2 months, we've had 86 people attend those classes. And it's very successful, and I hear it's very very good. I've talked to a few people that have taken the class, and they're really pleased with it. So it's something I think maybe in the future we continue to try to offer to our residents. I mean, these are $200 value classes being offered for free to our residents. So, and it's an economic development thing too. If we can get more people trained on these computers, perhaps they could either excel in their current job, maybe move on to a better job, or maybe even some who aren't currently employed find a job based upon these classes. So also we have done teen center upgrades. We did the computer lab center over there too, and that's a very successful program over there, and we use CDBG monies for that. So it's been a number of months, but this summer we had a joint meeting with Patterson and the West End Stanislaus Fire District. Out of that came we talked about doing some collaboration. I can tell you on our next meeting, which is again December 9th, we're going to have our first agreement for collaboration, and that's software system. Starting on July 10th, if you approve this, we'll be able to flip a switch, and everybody will be synced in together using the same software system. All the information will be merged together, and then we can correlate and analyze the projects and the information that we have, and then apply for joint grants. So I think that's very good, and I think it's very successful to show that we're going to take baby steps, and we'll take small steps to get there, but mutual cooperation by all these agencies, and you've done that today with the city of Gustine. And I think that's going to be the results of this current economic climate. You can see much more mutual collaboration, especially here on the west side. We're kind of out here by ourselves, and now we got our neighbor to the south. We found one way to work together, found our neighbor to the north, we found another way to work together, and we have to continue to define these relationships to help continue to provide a high level of service to our residents. And then lastly, because I won't be able to do it the next one, I wanted to personally thank the Mayor, John Fantasia, and Mike Greenclaw. I know this is my last opportunity to tell you guys, but I really appreciate all that you've done for the council. Many people don't know, for John, that he sits on so many boards. He probably attends 3 or 4 meetings a week and representing the city. He's always done an excellent job. He went to the League of California City Divisional President, representing 25, 30 cities.
32, I think.
32 cities, leading that, and he's done an excellent job for the community, and he should be commended on that. And then Councilman Greenclaw, he's come on board, and he's always, as a member of staff, you always have to be aware of what your report is, because Mike reads it, and he's going to ask the tough question. And from staff's perspective, I know that made us nervous at first, but it made us better professionals, and it made us better staff for you, because we always had to anticipate what's Mike going to ask us.
So 4 years to get the
So with that, I really appreciate all that you gentlemen have offered.
Thank you,
Thank you very much. And that's all that I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Other staff reports?
I'm going to jump at once. Flip a coin.
Wake up, Chief.
Mr. Ernie going first.
You got bumped up now. You're the first guy.
And I was tired from all my talking earlier. I promised at an earlier meeting today that I would say hello to Joe Evans. So hello, Joe. I kept my word
Joe
on
here?
that.
He was at our previous meeting.
he'll see it tomorrow. A couple announcements, Mr. Mayor and Council. I want to acknowledge some employees for some outstanding police work that we're pleased that's occurred recently. In December of last year, there were a number of residential burglaries conveniently during the winter break for school, and we were getting hit nearly every day, sometimes multiple homes. Unlike what we see on television, where fingerprints are taken every night, 3 or 4 times a night, and those people are matched up through some sophisticated computer, and they're locked up within 60 minutes of a television show. It's actually very rare that officers successfully recover fingerprints, and then it's even more rare that they're matched up to someone. But because of some diligence and thoroughness by Officer John Marriott and Sergeant Randy Richardson, they did successfully collect some fingerprints in those burglaries in 2007 in December, and did not forget about them, and did not let it go. Continued to enter those into our database, and ultimately, just in the last few weeks, led to an identification of a suspect that lives in Newman, and he was taken into custody a few nights ago with some of the property recovered as well. So, and also special acknowledgement to identification technician Amber Brown from the Sheriff's Department, who was a great asset to us on those cases as well. So those officers received commendations for their police work in those cases. The victims were very appreciative. Also, we've experienced a number of vandalisms, and was most recently attempted burglary and a burglary of the teen center. We've taken some efforts to try to prevent those from happening through some improved lighting and other things. But we were successful also in the last week of locating 2 individuals responsible for that, and they were taken into custody as well. So it's been a productive week, a busy week. Had a stabbing a couple nights ago, suspects in custody on that as well, and the victim has non-life-threatening wounds. So it's been a busy week for your police department. And lastly, I'd like to echo what the city manager has said, and thank the mayor and Councilmember Cookwell. You've been a tremendous support to the police department. The police department is very aware of that, and very much appreciates that, and you'll be missed working with you. So
Thank you.
thank you very much, and unless you have any questions, that's all I have.
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. Just want to let you know that youth basketball registrations ended last Friday, November 14th. At this time, we still do have some spots available in the girls' 8 to 10-year-old division. Practices for this league will begin the first week of December. We are still accepting registrations for the adult basketball league until November 30th. We still have 12 spots out of 12 at this time. And after the recent break-in attempts and vandalism at the teen center, I would like to thank Michael, Adam, Garner, and Doug for their time and effort in helping to get the new lighting in place. It really, really makes a difference. You can see all the way to the skate park now. And also, I'd like to thank my husband for implementing the cameras that caught the 2 guys on tape.
Well,
Oh, they know they're there. Any questions?
thank you, Terry.
Thank you.
No more staff reports? No more. Well,
Oh, gone?
we have a couple more staff members. Council comments, Ed?
Just a couple of things. First, I'd like to congratulate newly promoted Sergeant Short. He was one of my hires, so it makes me feel good that he's achieved the rank of sergeant. I always tell him, be careful what you ask for, so he'll find out soon. Second, I did attend the Veterans Day ceremony down in Gustine. It was really nice, and I'd like to congratulate Lieutenant Hutchins from our police department. He gave a real moving talk. He was a guest speaker, and he did an excellent job. It was he's got an interesting history in his military career and everything, and things that he remembers and brought forth. It was pretty cool. And the other thing, a question of Michael. In my mail slot the other day, as all of us got, was the artist rendition of the Newman Plaza downtown. And one thing I noticed was missing, and I've recently been asked about, is the Veterans Memorial. Best of my recolletion, that it was never this council's desire that was going to be removed from the Plaza project.
And it hasn't been.
Okay, 'cause I didn't see it on here. Is the reason why I was asking, because I was asked by a couple people, and I said, no, it's definitely still going to be there. To my knowledge, we did not axe it, scratch it, and so.
Yeah, based upon it, I think I spoke a little bit about this at a previous meeting. Phase 2 is where the Yancey building and that other component, the Veterans Memorial, will be, the service honorary will be in that Phase 2. Because of our tight timeline to get the Phase 1 going so we don't lose our federal grant, what we did is just sketched it out, just kind of memorialize it, and then we're going to come back to the council and use the steering committee to finalize a plan for that prior. But we need to get this first phase going and under construction first.
Okay.
So what we've done is just briefly memorialized it by putting the Yancey there and situated in the direction the council put us, and then we'll bring it back to the council for a final approval on Phase 2.
Okay, great. Because I assured the two people that approached me that, no, it's definitely going to be there, and I know that this council did not, axe it from the plan, so.
Right. We couldn't expend the amount of time because
Right.
really, how big do we make it? How small? And how do we make it correlate to the Yancey pedestrian oriented, highway oriented? How do we do all that? And there was just a lot of pieces left, so we just put the pieces in a bag, put it on the spot, and said we'll come back and figure it out later.
Great, thanks.
Is that it, or?
Yeah, that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bob?
I'd just like to thank the chief and all his officers. I had the pleasure of going to football game last Friday night, and Temple Warriors won, of course, and that was great. But the professionalism, when you go into a place like, and there was a lot of people there, and just the presence of the police officers and everything, it seemed very secure, and it's a family type of function, so it was good to see that type of security and protection for the citizens of Newman. And then afterwards, the traffic control was excellent. I know that there was a lot of cars coming out of there, but it just makes you proud when you see something like that. So I thank you and thank all your officers. Yeah. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Bob. Mike?
Well, tonight I sit here with great pride. This will be my last meeting. And I'm very proud to serve with my fellow councilman. John, you as mayor, you've done an excellent job. I'm proud of the staff, especially Michael. They're young, vigorous, enthusiastic, yet very insightful, well-prepared, experienced beyond their years. I have all the confidence that they will always do a good job in leading the city in the direction they need to go. I'm proud of the accomplishments and the foundation for the new projects. We completed a general plan, completed a sewer and water survey, started a downtown plaza, have an aquatic park on the plans, and the police department is in full force with a community service officer and especially a K-9 unit, which fabulous. I'm proud that the citizens of Newman have allowed me to represent them for the last 4 years. And in the words of Winston Churchill, I issue a challenge to all new council. Be not a weather vane moving in the direction of the political winds, but be a compass and set a new course, go on uncharted directions. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Well said, Michael, but you are going to come to the next meeting, I hope.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. You bet. I'm going to say my big speech for the next meeting, but I just wanted to thank everyone in the community for supporting me over these last 8 years. All the councils that I've been with, especially this council, good to work with. And especially I wanted to thank staff. I mean, I've seen staff come and go and come back again, and I think we have great staff. In talking with the other cities and the other mayors and the things that they put up with their staff, we don't see that here, and I think everybody works together, and that's attributed to Michael. And things are working well, and I'll say a few more words at the next meeting, but It's been a pleasure serving the citizens for the last 8 years. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Thank you.
I move for adjournment.
I second that motion.
Meeting adjourned.
Here next